There are some unforgettable bands and songs from the 60s that never made it to the charts. And if you haven't heard these songs, I gotta ask, what are you waiting for? Don't Look Back by Boston-based garage rock band The Remains has been immortalized thanks to its inclusion on Nuggets, original artifacts from the first psychedelic era, 1965 to 1968. The 1972 compilation that has long been a gateway for those interested in the alternative 60s scene. With a charismatic performance from frontman Barry Tashian, the song has warm, fuzzy guitar tones throughout and an unforgettable breakdown reminding listeners to fight back against the status quo. The song was written by 60s rocker Billy Vera, and despite its intelligent lyricism and attention-grabbing arrangement, it tanked, which was weird. The band opened for the Beatles on their 1966 American tour, the same year that Don't Look Back was released, played on The Ed Sullivan Show, and released a self-titled studio album. But the band had split up by the time it hit record stores. The Remains album, with Don't Look Back as the standout track, was re-released in 2007. If you like digging up obscure classics that deserve far more attention than they got, Jim Sullivan's 1969 album U.F.O. is a must-listen. It's a lost gem that says plenty about the era in which it was released, and the album's title track is a standout.
I bought me a ticket, got a front row seat, I'm checking out the show.
The song, U.F.O., is lyrically dense and packed with references to Sullivan's obsessions, including, as you probably gathered, extraterrestrials. Sullivan's songwriting is beautifully supported by the Wrecking Crew's orchestrations. And if you don't know who that is, that's the studio band that played for everybody from Sinatra to Bob Dylan. Strings swell throughout, adding a touch of melancholy that complements the sense of awe infusing the lyrics, while Sullivan's warm vocals ground the song in folk and country, despite the weirdness of the subject matter. Unless you're also into UFOs, that is. Sullivan released one more album in 1972, but his career failed to take off. In 1975, Sullivan was talking with his manager, who weirdly asked him if he were ever to disappear, how he would do it. Sullivan replied, "I'd walk into the desert and never come back." That March, he left his family in LA to seek his fortune in Nashville. Sullivan never got there. His Volkswagen was discovered in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, with his guitar in the passenger seat. He was never seen again. Friends and fans suspect Sullivan disappeared in order to start a new life, or that he was so in tune with aliens that they came and took him away. The Elite was a well-regarded local band in the Fort Worth garage rock scene in the mid-60s, but they never managed to break out. One Potato, Two Potato is a lot, and it's by far their catchiest tune. It switches between playground chats, nonsensical vocals lifted from the Trashmen's Surfing Bird, crazy drum fills, smooth surf rock guitar passages, and climactic grunts and screams from the band members. It's definitely original. See? Anyway, the Elite fell apart after just a few years together, but as lead singer Roger Brownlee told the Star-Telegram back in 2004, the level of notoriety we had in the Elites was never matched. We agree that we never had the same feeling of exuberance or excitement with any of the other bands we were in. It was like losing your true love. It was a period of time that would only happen once.
Do it again.
Okay. All you have to do is listen to One Potato, Two Potato to know just how much fun it must have been. Girl groups in the early 1960s were typically smooth, composed, classy, and perfectly coiffed, but the Tammys were something else entirely.
Last night I dreamed I was on the Nile, shimmy, shimmy, shine.
The Tammys' music may not have made the national charts, but their eccentric single Egyptian Shumba has become a cult classic. The Pennsylvania group, made up of sisters Gretchen and Kathy Owens and a friend Linda Jones, was championed by pop star Luke Christie, who helped them cut 3 singles. While the others are standard girl group fare, Egyptian Shumba is notable for the adolescent sisters' frenetic vocal style, which includes choruses in which the girls simply scream as if they're in a schoolyard. The orchestrations are slightly Middle Eastern sounding, and the contrast is truly bizarre. If they're going for an exotic feel, the playground screams yeeted the number into some hitherto unexplored territory. That's not a bad thing, though. The song is super fun and danceable, but put it on at a party and the screams are sure to elicit strong opinions, and maybe a few schoolyard flashbacks. Listening to it today, it's unbelievable that the Zombies' Care of Cell 44 didn't make the charts. Released in the UK in '67 and in the US the following year, the song oozes that '60s sound, and like the band's big hit Time of the Season, it transports you back there from the opening bars.
Good morning to you, I hope you're feeling better, baby.
Care of Cell 44 manages to be an uplifting pop number even with lyrics about writing to a loved one in prison. It's been compared to the work of the Beach Boys' Brian Wilson and the Beatles' Paul McCartney, both obvious influences on Zombie songwriter Rod Argent. The arrangement is ambitious, with multiple bridges, a cappella harmonies, and rousing hooks. Colin Blunstone's voice is pure, warm, and melodic, while Chris White's exceptional bass performance gives the track an irresistible groove. Care of Cell 44 is a hit that never was, but the following year, the release of Time of the Season revived the fortunes of the band just as the Zombies were about to call it a day.
My pal's name is Football, he always likes to belong.
Often considered a song so bad that it's actually good, the Shaggs' My Pal Foot is a weird slice of outsider music that tells the story of someone looking for a missing friend named Foot.
I couldn't stop listening to it.
That's the thing.
And
The song was performed by three young sisters, Dot, Betty, and Helen, who had very little prior musical knowledge, which you likely deduced if you have ears, but do have one of music's strangest origin stories. You see, they were forced to become a band by their father, whose psychic mother predicted he'd have three famous musical daughters.
is there a time signature here?
The psychic grandmother wasn't wrong.
These are the grandmothers of punk.
The Shaggs didn't break through in 1969. The sister style is not at all mainstream and often off-tempo as heard on My Pal Foot.
Foot, don't live here no more.
But their music has gained a cult following over the years, with fans like Kurt Cobain and Frank Zappa, who once claimed that the Shaggs' naive music was better than the Beatles. Then again, Zappa was also way out there. For fans of the stranger music of the late 60s, My Pal Foot has become an essential cut.
Complication!
Monks was a band of American GIs stationed in Germany who set about making some of the weirdest music of the 1960s. They were originally a straightforward cover band until they shaved the tops of their heads and put on monks' clothing. At the same time, their music grew increasingly acerbic, turning them into proto-punk pioneers.
Complication!
So if you don't know what acerbic means, you can figure it out from there. Sarcastic. They were a bit like Devo from the 80s in a sense. Complication was released as a single off of Monk's 1966 debut album Black Monk Time. It says everything about why this obscure band has developed a strong cult following over the years, especially among prominent alternative artists such as Iggy Pop and Mark E. Smith. Complication combines a bevy of different drum patterns with grinding bass, guitars, and keys, high-pitched croaky vocals, and an unpredictable arrangement that meant it would never be a pop hit. Today, it sounds fresh and riotous, shot through with a spirit of resistance. The original 1966 liner notes read, "Listen, as Roger beats, Gary plucks, Dave pummels, and Eddie dreams hell's bass part, and Larry fingers the keys of the day after tomorrow. The monks believe in nothing. The monks believe that everything is possible." Odd, but also awesome.
If not this time.
Many of the cult records of the late 1960s were just ahead of their time. Take San Francisco's psychedelic band 50 Foot Hose's debut album Cauldron, for example. A combination of psychedelic rock, electronica, and avant-garde composition, the album's standout track, If Not This Time, is super ambitious. Singer Nancy Blossom's vocals are double-tracked, which pushes the cut into trippier waters than other era-defining music by artists like Jefferson Airplane. The electronic textures that fizz and squelch throughout the track were the work of founding member Cork Markeski, who fashioned his own electronic instrument from assorted objects that included theremins, ex-military radio parts, and fuzz boxes. But in If Not This Time, 50 Foot Hose used their innovations tastefully. Though challenging, the track is soothing rather than abrasive. It's a good trip. And while not catchy in any way, it's atmospheric enough to fit alongside the bigger hits of psychedelia.
Making time, shooting line.
British freakbeat combo The Creation has been compared to the Velvet Underground as a band that didn't gain the commercial success it deserved, but which has been cited by generations of musicians as a touchstone of the 1960s. Making Time was the band's first single under the name The Creation, and while it had minor chart success in Britain, it didn't chart in the US. But this stomping track shows the band at the height of its powers.
People have their usual. People have their usual.
It is a driving rhythm and an infectious guitar part reminiscent of the early Kinks. The track is one of the first known examples of a guitar being played with a violin bow before the Yardbirds' Jimmy Page did it. Making Time is a raw but melodic track that anticipates some of the biggest bands of the next 3 decades, including Oasis.
Sitting alone on a bench with you.
Long-running British rock outfit The Pretty Things went through several iterations over the years, eventually earning a modicum of success in the US in the late 1970s. But we'd argue that the band's best music came out in 1967, when it was at its most experimental and psychedelic. Defecting Grey was released as a standalone single alongside that year's SF Sorrow LP, a conceptual work about the life of a title character that may have influenced The Who's rock opera Tommy.
Night sky hangs in blackness.
The song alternates between waltzy verses and driving hard rock passages, interspersed with backtracked guitar solos that recall experimental Beatle tunes like Strawberry Fields Forever. The track is incredibly evocative of that time, but sadly for the band, there was little audience for it when it was released as a single, and SF Sorrow was a commercial failure. To fans, it seems incomprehensible that Defecting Grey isn't held among the classics of the era, but to those in the know, it remains a much-loved hidden gem by an underappreciated band.
You join the children of the sun.
Few bands of the 1960s managed to deliver a sound as heavy as The Misunderstood, whose 1969 single Children of the Sun features the kind of raw aggression that rock bands of every generation would love to replicate. The California band was discovered by the legendary British DJ John Peel in 1966. He convinced them to relocate to the UK, where he believed The Misunderstood might find a more enthusiastic audience.
Relax yourselves and trip.
It wasn't to be. Though The Misunderstood received a certain degree of critical adulation, the band lost label support after lead singer Rick Brown was drafted into the Vietnam War, and the group had broken up by the time Children of the Sun was released. It's a shame, because the track easily fits alongside the best of the psychedelic blues rock that emerged in the wake of the British invasion, with chunky bass tones, vocals that grab the listener by the throat, culminating in a guitar wig out that hints at what The Misunderstood must have been like to hear live. As you probably saw coming, ultimately the audience just misunderstood them and they vanished.
There's a break in every road.
There's a Break in the Road, which failed to chart upon its release in 1969, was New Orleans soul vocalist Betty Harris's final single before retiring from the music industry in 1970. For this reason alone, it's a bittersweet listen. The track makes it obvious that Harris, who had made a name for herself as an interpreter of the soul songs of her longtime collaborator Alan Toussaint, added rawness and verve to become a funk icon as she remained in the business.
Like the last year, Ma, you put me down.
Over spiky guitars and an irresistible bass groove supplied by Leo Nocentelli and bassist George Porter Jr. of the Meters, as well as an expansive drum part from jazz drummer James Black, Harris crackles with power and defiance as she rails against a former lover who has mistreated her.
I'm in the cold, I'm left alone.
She may have been channeling her frustration with the music industry itself, which treated her much like the man in the song did, and it makes for a spellbinding performance of a funky track that could still fill a dance floor today. And the good news is, Harris returned to performing in 2005.